Welcome to Locker Talk. We're a little delayed. I'm Finn O'Hara.
I'm Freddie Kudre.
I'm Griffin Spurgeon.
All right, college football playoff semifinal recap.
Get into it.
We got Bama, Cincinnati. What'd you guys think?
I thought Cincinnati showed that they did deserve to be in the Final Four. I know I saw something earlier, and you saw there was like a tweet or something with a bunch of blowouts saying like how Cincinnati didn't deserve to be there. But then you see teams like Washington that have been in there. I want to say like a Notre Dame that got in there and got blown out. There's been a couple other blowouts too, between like Clemson and Ohio State and Bama playing other teams that are really good too. But I think Cincy really deserved, to be there after watching everything. With that being said, though, I think Alabama did a great job with their offensive scheme. I didn't think anyone thought they'd come out and run the ball the way they did with, Brian Robinson coming out with 198 rushing yards. I think that was an Alabama bowl game record. So I don't think people saw that coming, but overall, I think it was a great game. Alabama definitely the better opponent. But that's how the SEC ball. That's SEC ball. That's how they roll.
Off your point about the blowouts, I think I saw something on Twitter that 85% of the semis, with the exception of that Georgia-Oklahoma game in the Rose Bowl, and I can't remember the other two. I think there are only three that weren't decided by 14 points or more. I mean, most of the semifinals have been huge blowouts, no matter who's playing. Like you said, whether it's Washington, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, I mean, they get their butts kicked. So, I mean, it's not like Cincinnati went in there and was like everyone else, too. Because on top of that, they held Alabama to 27 points. That's hard to do. I mean, the SEC championship, Georgia gave up 41 to Alabama, and Cincinnati only gave up 27 points. Cincinnati's defense, I think, their secondary still proved to be one of the best in the country. Sauce Gardner still held the entire season, including this semifinal game. Sauce Gardner did not have an opponent have more than 20 yards. That is insane. He's clearly one of the best corners in the country, and, he goes up against Alabama and proves it. So, Desmond Ridder looked very pedestrian, but the defense at least held up for the most part. I think it was just the offense that struggled for Cincy.
It seemed like their quarterback was just always running around, and he would barely get out of the pocket. They were so good at it containing him. Alabama's defense, that is, containing Cincinnati's offense and their QB. Obviously one of the star players, Will Anderson, he was all over the place, just causing pressure throughout the whole game. It just didn't seem like that Cincinnati O-line had any answers for him. He had maybe an average of maybe 2-3 seconds to get the ball off, which is like NFL timing when it comes to pressure to the pocket. But yeah, I almost kind of felt bad for him, just constantly getting hit. Even when he rolls out of the pocket, there's always someone there waiting for him. That's just kind of a testament to how great the Alabama defense was, and how many weapons they have.
I think the same thing goes to show, though, for the other side of the ball, too, with Cincinnati. I mean, a lot of times I watch the game, Myjah Sanders is a guy for Cincinnati defensive end who always seemed to be in every play pressuring Bryce Young. And, Bryce Young tossed for 188 yards. I want to say Ridder had 144. There's not a huge difference there. One of them threw a pick, but the other one also had 3 touchdowns, so that being Young. But still, at the same time, I feel like both did a great job. But in your point for Will Anderson, it's so much different with Alabama defense compared to, Cincinnati, other than, Myjah Sanders. I didn't see a lot of guys really getting after the QB. I forget the linebacker's name. There's a guy from Franklin, Indiana, actually went to Franklin Central, who was balling out for him. But other than that, Alabama's defensive line, it's so hard because you got those guys, and then You got to contain them, and then that just allows their linebackers, him, and then a 5-star transfer from Tennessee, Andrew Toto, just comes in, and like it's so easy for them to just play the game and just flow around.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think the crazy part about Cincinnati's defense is I'm looking at back to back the stats of the SEC championship compared to the semi, and I mean Bryce Young threw for 421 yards in the SEC champion on this supposedly best defense in the country in Georgia, and Cincinnati's doing that to him. Cincinnati's the best defense in the country. There's no doubt in my mind Cincinnati's the best defense in the country. I mean, I watched them play in person. I watched them play in front of a sold-out crowd at Indiana. And I mean, there were times where I think it was early in the season. The crowd got to them. I mean, it was an insane environment. But after they got punched in the mouth, they figured it out and pretty much shut down Indiana in the second half. Actually, from the second quarter on. Not that Indiana's on any level that Alabama was this year, but I'm just saying I saw that in person, and they figured it out quick as the season went on, and they had a few stumbles in AAC play. You're going to have that. Everyone struggles with someone at some point, but I just don't think that Georgia really has what it takes to beat Alabama. I know it's hard. I guess we can take that into talking about the Georgia game.
Well, before we go to that, though, the guy we had, special guest we had on our last episode, Emil, sadly, he got hurt toward the end of the first quarter. I think it was like the last minute or two. I saw the clip. He's grabbing his shoulder. He points to the sideline. He's like, I'm done. So it's definitely something in the upper body, maybe shoulder. I haven't really looked exactly to what it is, but hope he's good. But thankfully they got the dub. So glad he's moving on to the national championship. And maybe we'll get him back on and talk about the end result. So now we can go on to the
how about the other? What do you think about that?
What's that?
What do you think about the other game? Is my mic's lagging, isn't it?
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
So yeah, the Georgia game, Michigan didn't have what it took to be out there. I mean, I didn't actually see a ton of the game. I was keeping up with the stats on my phone, seeing highlights on Twitter. I just wasn't able to be in front of a TV at the time. But Michigan's defensive line has been stellar all year, and they didn't do anything. I mean, I saw Aiden Hutchinson get pancaked 3 times, which is, he was a Heisman finalist. So I guess Michigan really, Big Ten wasn't what it was made out to be this year. The top isn't as good as the top of the SEC. There really wasn't much to talk about with Michigan that game. They didn't do much. Georgia just kind of overpowered them in literally every facet of the game.
That D line.
You kind of touched.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we're so far. Go ahead, man. My mic's really far behind her. My mic's just lagging.
It's all good. I think Georgia's. I think all facets of that whole game, they just were a different planet. It was insane. It was Michigan's Hutchinson. He just obviously he was getting keyed. He was always probably getting a couple double teams every now and then, or someone's always going to be watching that guy, obviously. But then again, it's also Georgia. So it's they just had so many weapons. And Bennett, in my opinion, the Georgia quarterback, I think he's a good to average college quarterback. He can kind of run around the pocket a little bit, but he just has some Alabama quarterbacks in the past in comparison. But yeah, Bennett at Georgia, he has so many weapons to throw to. And then he has the running game to bail him out. But yeah, again, that defense of Georgia's just lit Michigan up. They could not. And my prediction was that Michigan's O-line would hold up for a while. They would do your job, and I was kind of rooting for them, especially after that video we showed in the first episode. But yeah, it was just kind of sad to see the Big Ten being so far off from the two SEC powerhouses this year.
I mean, I get that to a point. Every conference is going to have up and down years. Every power program is going to have up and down years. I think the Big Ten's getting better, not in the sense that we've been a bad conference. I mean, I think it's always really been a close second to the SEC, and there's really not a lot of debating that because, you have your Clemson in the ACC and, Oklahoma in the Big 12, but, top to bottom as a whole conference, I mean, Big Ten's always the last 10 years been a close second to the SEC. It's just getting over the hump to beat Georgia, beat Alabama if you're Ohio State, and if you're now Michigan. Michigan State's been in this place before. They were in the playoff in 2015 and got absolutely clobbered. So I don't know. I think they're starting to get those same recruits. The really high 5-star guys that the SEC has been getting. I think it's evening out, but clearly not there yet. I mean, McNamara only threw for 100 yards, 2 interceptions, no TDs. Running game that was all over the place in the Big Ten all year was non-existent. So I think it'll eventually get there. It's going to be Ohio State as it always is, but it'll get there.
Yeah, going on Michigan, they had 88 yards rushing. And when your goal line comes in pregame shirt saying "run the damn ball" and you get shown up like that's just embarrassing. You can't have that. There's 200 total yards difference between Georgia and Michigan. And to touch on your point, Stetson Bennett, you said he's got something about him. He's got a chip on his shoulder. That's what it is, and that's what
he's the mailman.
He's a walk-on. He's got the guy 5-star JT Daniels coming in. Hey, this guy's going to be the new guy. JT Daniels just flat out sucked this year. He didn't look good at all. And, Stetson Bennett also has legs. And a lot of times of this year, they needed him to get out of the pocket, create space for himself, and get out and do what he does. And JT Daniels wasn't that guy. So I think that's what Stetson Bennett brings to the table there. But overall, like you said, Freddie, a lot of it does come down to recruiting the 5 stars. You got all these guys in the South, and people always say, oh, it helps. You can play, year round. Yes and no, but I mean, look at the guys in Michigan. You got a ton of dudes from Texas. Look at Notre Dame. Their pipeline out west in California is unbelievable of guys that they can get in. If you're a big school and you're a well-known name of a player, they're going to find you. You're going to go where you want to go. And whether that's Bama or not, you can recruit. IU, for example, huge pipeline in Florida and Georgia.
Well,
huge.
Literally, I think about half of the guys that started this year, I mean, both sides, so 22 guys, half of them are from Florida and mostly the Tampa area because Tom Allen has those connections down there. He was a high school coach down there. He coached at USF, but I mean, like you said before, I'm not going to interrupt you completely, but those high 5 stars are starting to go to the Big Ten schools. I mean, Penn State has an incredible recruiting class this year. Michigan is back up there. Ohio State's always up there, but those 3, they're getting even higher on the recruiting rankings than they have been the last 10 years, and it's going to start to show. It's going to eventually start to show. Even Indiana's in the top 15 now. They got moved back up. I mean, Big Ten's starting to recruit with the best of them, so it's going to show.
But as far as the game goes, for sure, that going to be 5-star, 5-star, 4-star versus 4-star. Who do you guys think is going to win? My money, I think Bama's going to win again. That being said, Georgia's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. It's in Indy, so I mean it'll be a good game regardless. Indy always has a great hospitality, knows how to show out for the games. But I think Bama up front physically, I think is going to wear them down. I think they're going to pass really well again. The secondary obviously isn't going to be the same as what they just faced in Cincinnati. I'm not saying it's better, but I mean, they've already played them, so it'll be difficult as well. But I think Bama comes in, and Nick Saban had that smirk on his face after winning, versus Cincy. And it's kind of like, yeah, we've seen that, 6-7 times already in the past couple, 14 years, I think. So it's becoming a common theme.
Yeah, no, I think Bama comes out with the dub and a ring this year. But that's not to say that this game's not going to be close. I think this is going to be pretty close and hard-fought game. At least I hope it is. I just think there's too many weapons on both sides of the ball for it not to be somewhat close within 14 points. Fred, I could see you kind of shaking your head, maybe not, but I think just from what I saw, Georgia to Michigan, and yeah, Cincinnati Bama game was a little closer. I don't know. Bama and Georgia both had great games in the semifinals, and they're coming off good performances, like I said. But I think that just kind of leads me to believe that it's going to be somewhat close. But I think in the fourth quarter, Bama is just going to pull away and win by I want to say 14 or 21 points. But that's my prediction for the Natty.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I just think based off what I've seen all year, and especially after seeing that semifinal, Cincinnati is a much better team than Michigan is. If Cincinnati and Michigan got paired up, Cincinnati would have won by 10. I watched IU play Cincinnati. Like I said, I watched Cincinnati win at Notre Dame, who I do think, as much as I hate on them, I do think they were a solid team this year, and winning at Notre Dame is never easy. I watched a few more Michigan games, that Michigan State game, the Ohio State game, and then this semifinal. I know it's kind of a stretch, Michigan. I still think, looking at that SEC championship game, it was only a month ago. Alabama just outclassed them. I think Saban well outcoached Kirby again. I mean, it's just kind of the same old song and dance with Saban and his assistants. I don't think that's changing Monday night. I think Alabama wins by 14 plus.
I have nothing to rebuttal for there. I agree. And plus, I've already kind of said my 2 cents on it. But yeah, I completely agree with that. 14 points. The first meeting between the two in the championship game was 17 points. Only difference is these teams have now played one extra game against 2 very tough opponents last week, and now they're coming to this. But I still think Bama's been here before. Georgia wasn't on this stage last year. Bama's been here for so many years in a row. They know what to do. They know what's expected. And for them, it's just another business trip. I'm not saying Georgia's lucky to be in it, but for them, it's okay, we're back to the top. Is it going to be what is their magical year? Was it 83? Georgia's back 83 or whatever. It's beginning to a running theme, kind of like the state of Indiana with 2 teams oh, we're back. The 80s of IU basketball and Notre Dame football.
Hey, Tennessee, it feels like 98, baby. That's my favorite one to go back to.
That's cool, though. And that also ties in with Indiana, Peyton Manning. The reason Lucas Oil is here, and which is going to be the host of the, college football playoff final, is because of him. I can only imagine. We're going to get on the Colts now. Let's switch to the Colts. I want to put that in before we talk about their issues and win and move on. But if Peyton Manning never came around, what would have happened to the RCA Dome, and what would we have now? We definitely wouldn't have the.
I don't even think we'd have an NFL team in Indianapolis anymore.
Really, you think they pull a San Diego or Las Vegas or the Raiders? Even though the Raiders were never going to leave, there was no reason for them to. They just found a new home in Vegas. The Raiders Nation is always there.
I mean, if the Colts weren't good for a long period, I mean, look at the Colts before Peyton when they moved to Indy, and look at us for the couple of years after Andrew Luck, during the Grigson era. If we were bad for that long, why would you stick around in a small market like that?
That's true.
I know you got Cleveland. Cleveland was literally won 4 games, and like
I feel like Cleveland's a historic
Three
team,
seasons.
though.
they're
They
historic,
are.
but
That's the difference.
Cleveland, Ohio.
But it's historic. That's the thing, though. Like, I'm trying to think of a team that would compare, that would have the New York Jets. My goodness. There is a perfect example. The Detroit Lions, even. Those are two teams. It's not like the Jets are historic. The Lions, I wouldn't say are as historic, but there's just like something about them, The New York
If the Chiefs were bad for a long period of time, they're not sticking around in Kansas City.
That's true. I think it also like the city too, but then again, you think about Detroit, but Detroit's not as bad as what people make it out to be.
No, it's not. I think a lot of people don't realize how easy teams would leave cities in any sport. Like they're probably going to watch this and say, "Oh, no way." Pacers might leave for Seattle. Pacers have been here from the ABA to the NBA forever. I mean, we don't have to talk about the Pacers, but I'm just saying teams leave cities like that at snap of a finger.
Hasn't St. Louis had 2 football teams leave them, the Cardinals and the Rams?
Cardinals and the Rams, the Atlanta Hawks were the St. Louis Hawks. I mean,
Cardinals are the only one that actually the baseball team.
And the Blues.
I forgot the Blues. St. Louis Blues.
You forgot the Blues.
Hockey. Yeah, cool. You won the Stanley Cup like 3 years ago. It's the Panthers' years this year, baby. All right. Anyways, to the Colts we go. And the Colts struggles, trying to triumph over their opponents this past week. The thing that made me so mad about this past week, the final play of the game that really ended it, the touchdown. Why review it? I mean, you have to. Every scoring play is reviewed, but they went in so much to see, okay, his ring finger touched his third cleat in the middle there. Why? Just at some point, I'm Frank Reich and saying, hurry up and kick the field goal. Let him kick it. That way we get more time rather than wasting. Daniel Carlson's an automatic kicker, but also the play. What are we doing?
I mean,
how do you okay. Like that? I know you fell down, but come on.
Say they wrapped up that review very quickly without looking at it very much, the Raiders staff would have gone insane because they wouldn't have wanted them to be. It would have ruined either way. You brush off the review, it's good for the Colts, whatever. But they did their job. I don't think you can do much about that or really be that mad about it. But
it was cool how sorry to interrupt, but it was cool how one of the announcers said during the game at that point that there's only a few fans that were kind of going crazy about the call being reversed, whatever, not a touchdown, because most people knew that what that meant.
Yeah.
Now they're going to take more time off the clock and they're going to hit this and then end the game. As opposed to Carson Wentz trying to lead them down the field again to try to score in 40 seconds or less, 30.
I think the key word there is Carson Wentz trying to lead the team down the field to win the game. He was pretty abysmal all day, I was a hater of the signing when it first happened. I hated it so much. I did not want Carson Wentz to be our quarterback. But, since then I've kind of embraced it and embraced him a little bit as our quarterback. But he's done well all year. He had COVID. He clearly was not at 100% recovered. He was slow, lethargic, not making good passes. He was overthrowing everything. But maybe at that point you should have let Ehlinger go in there halftime, figure it out. But Wentz was bad. I think that's what killed it. I mean, Jonathan Taylor had another incredible game, and we lost because of Wentz. We did.
I don't want to put it all on Carson Wentz's shoulders, but at the same time, cool. You went 16 for 27. That's not a bad percentage, 148 yards. You literally have 2 overthrown balls. One was in a crucial time, I think, third down to Mo Alley Cox, which could have been corrected. And you miss a wide open T.Y. Hilton, overthrows him like he always does. He always overthrows it. Right over his head. T.Y.'s in the end zone if he catches it. That's 100% Carson Wentz. And I don't want to be the guy, point fingers. There's a ton of stuff that could have gone different in that game. Maybe there's not a blown coverage at the end by Kenny Moore. And obviously he overthrew. Great throw. Couldn't have placed it any better for Derek Carr. But still, you fall down, I get it. It's bad luck. That's really bad luck. But, I mean, you got to make those throws. How much money is Carson Wentz making?
A lot. Too much.
I mean, come on. It's a touch pass. It is a simple touch pass. There's dudes in high school that are – Brady Allen, Mr. Football in Indiana, is making that throw 10 out of 10 times.
Hey, that's some Southern Indiana juice right there, boy.
Gibson Southern.
Hey,
yes,
I mean, Spurgeon, I agree. I just think over the course of the season, I feel like, yeah, we have some, pretty decent young receivers, but they're just, not getting open. Yes, there's plays that he missed, wide open passes. Of course, he's got to make those throws. He's a professional. And is getting paid as one. So, I mean, just yes, he's making mistakes. Yes, he's not perfect. But, I mean, he doesn't really have many. We'll look at these plays each game, and they're just not getting open. And it was even more – you can even see it more so. I think it was against the Arizona game. Carson stepped up with, the O-line all gone, basically. They had one starter left, or they had 2 backup reserves. They'd have to go to the long snapper Luke Rhodes next for all we know. But it just seems I don't know. I think we need another one or two. We need a veteran receiver, someone that's been in the league. I just think, yes, we have a young receiving core, but it's just it's not getting it done. In my opinion,
the veteran receiver. T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, we do, but he's not.
He's here for one more year, probably, though.
T.Y. the dude's old. After this year, him and Jack Doyle are going to be either done or Doyle's going to have one more year left with him. T.Y. will come back because, hey, it's his buddy. Come back. T.Y. will do a little bit minimum work. He'll get a minimum salary, veteran salary, and Jack Doyle will still produce at what he does probably right now. But, I mean, that's not the veteran you need. You need a dude that goes out and actually – and not saying T.Y. can't show him how it's done. I'm sure he does in practice. But in a game, you need a guy that's going to go out and get his. And right now, he's not the guy. I mean, Pittman's leading us right now.
I'm surprised, speaking of Pittman, he had 1,000. He eclipsed 1,000 yards on the year against Oakland or Las Vegas. I think that's surprising, like Finn said, and going off kind of what we're talking about the receiving core and how Carson Wentz has been playing. I think it's insane taking that and then seeing, oh my God, Michael Pittman has 1,000 yards on the year. Kind of doesn't, it doesn't add up. But I think that just goes to show you how good Michael Pittman is and can be in the future. So I think that's a bright spot right there, is that Pittman's the guy. I mean, we've had a long line of receivers of solid number one receivers, and Pittman's the next man up. But the only touchdown Wentz threw on Sunday was thrown into double coverage and a lucky bounce into T.Y. Hilton's hands.
Ashton Doolin should have gotten credit for that touchdown. Put that in the stat books. Ashton Doolin touchdown. Ashton Doolin had one target. It literally fell into I'm pretty sure that was it. I'm pretty sure, looking at the stats, Ashton Doolin had one target, and I think that was the target he got. And it ended up being a touchdown, not from him. But also, to go with that, I want to take back what I said. It's not all on Carson Wentz. Our secondary, man. Our secondary. Zay Jones is toasting us, man. He's a good receiver, don't get me wrong. But 120 yards? $120? Zay Jones? Zay Jones! What are we doing? Yes. Zay Jones. The dude's been putting in the work according to Wentz, and he gives him all the praise in the world, and he's a guy that stays after, wants to get in the film, watch it, and do. He's the guy that puts in the work, but I don't want to take away from him. But Zay Jones?
I mean, I'm with you. Don't get me wrong. I think the secondary's been sufficient all year. They had a bad game Sunday. I don't think that secondary is ever going to make or break games for you very often. They're going to be just good enough to get the job done to keep you in a game for the most part. I mean, but the Raiders still only had what the final score 28-20. I don't even remember what the final score was. It sounds about right.
23 was it 23-20 or 24-20?
Oh yeah, because they took the touchdown back for the field goal.
23-20, yeah.
So it would have been 27-20. I mean, 27 point. I mean, it is what it is. They've done well. They did well against the Cardinals the other week. It's all about how well the defensive line and line second line can do, linebackers, in front of them, get pressure and help them out. And I don't think we did the best job at that on Sunday. It looked like Derek Carr had too much time to throw the ball a lot, and that's going to hurt any secondary. When you don't get pressure, it's going to hurt any secondary. There's holes are going to open up. I still think this team has it in them to go on a run. I do. Kind of moving forward from last week's game and looking at, we only have 1 week left and looking at the playoff picture. AFC's kind of wide open to me, at least for the Colts. I mean, depending on the matchups we end up getting, who wins, who loses, depending on what seed we get. If they play like they did against Arizona, there's no stopping this team. There's none.
I just can't get off the fact that Zay Jones, though, if you look, we held Stephon Diggs in Buffalo to, I want to say, 40 yards. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they beat us by 7. They come into Lucas Oil. We completely shut down their receivers. Gronkowski was their best receiver, 123 yards, 7 receptions.
And that's what I'm saying. The secondary will do a good job most of the time, at least sufficient. Depends on how much pressure we can get. And they just didn't get pressure on Sunday.
Other than those 2 games, I will say the wide receiver one for all other teams has pretty much been getting 100 yards. But still, I don't want to disrespect Zay Jones, but I mean, that's a name where you're just
Zay Jones.
He's putting up 120 against you. And, like, I've heard the dude works like mad crazy and everything, and he's putting in the work, and good for him. But from everything I've heard this season, like in the secondary, and we're at home, the Colts, and we lose, and he's getting 120 yards. Renfro's putting up 77. Like, it just doesn't add up.
I agree. It'll be, I guess we'll find out on Sunday. I mean, that's a win. That's a make or break game right there. I mean, you really had to, you wish you took care of business on Sunday this past week, but you got Jacksonville. Haven't won in Jacksonville in a while, which is insane, but we haven't won in Jacksonville in a while. But take care of business. It's a make or break game. I think we can make a run in the playoffs.
And now, speaking of receivers, Antonio Brown. What was that? I mean, it's all over the news. You've all heard about it.
I feel for the guy.
I mean, the man just. Why? Why do you feel bad for him?
Because there's
CTE.
Yes, like he literally. I saw this today. Like, don't diagnose him with CTE if you're not a doctor, but like, the signs are there.
Ever since he took that hit against the Bengals, dude, he has not been the same man.
No,
the dude farted. He farted on his doctor.
He didn't have issues like this, or at least we didn't hear about it early on in Pittsburgh. You didn't. I mean, he was kind of an eccentric guy even before all this, but you didn't hear about things like this. And then, late in his tenure in Pittsburgh, kind of goes off the rails, doesn't even play for the Raiders. And then,
his doctor.
I understand that.
What does not correlate there? That is
who goes in there. When you look at some of the interviews he had, you look at some of the interviews he had. He always was kind of a weird guy. Like, there's one he did with ESPN. I mean, one of the many, but he did it at his house. Basically just saying, like, football needs me. I don't need football. And that was like the best representation of that on Sunday when he just said, screw it, I'm walking out. He told me something I didn't like, I'm leaving.
Except I'm with you there. Except football absolutely does not need him. Like football.
Oh no, I agree.
Yeah,
That's just what he said.
The Buccaneers literally like Tom Brady's like love him, hope he gets the help he needs. Bruce Arians is just like he's no longer a Buccaneer, and it was just like they moved right on. Didn't even worry about it.
That's what I want to see because like the man has been given so many opportunities, and yes, he's a great receiver, but like he just seems like such a diva, man. Like he causes problems. He has to have a certain kind of helmet, or he's not playing football again. I mean, like anywhere he's gone, it just shocks me how long he stayed with the Steelers, knowing that he was the same person pretty much, just not as many hits later on. But I mean, honestly, how did he like corral him
Mike
for
Tomlin's
so long?
The GOAT for
I was literally
that
just going to say that. Mike Tomlin's the GOAT, and that's why.
That's
Any
why
man that has like that is so ostentatious has to have that sort of persona around them, and the head coach can just contain him for so long. Or maybe we thought he was containing him, and this whole time there could have been some stuff he was doing that was just never addressed. Knowing Antonio Brown, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that was never released until he got released from the Steelers, and then everything became a lot more public, and then his life obviously became a lot more, public to say the least. And then, but yeah, Mike Tomlin, he's the GOAT for that. You had him, Le'Veon Bell, and Big Ben. I don't want to, and Juju is on. I mean, the characters this guy has around him it has to like maintain and keep them focused and not.
He had a Pouncey brother on his team too.
Who?
He had a Pouncey brother on his team too.
Yeah, like Chase Claypool's out there celebrating on a third down conversion with like 5 seconds left in the clock, and you're losing the game. Like the stuff Mike Tomlin's dealt with. What a guy! Hall of Famer, no doubt.
That Chase Claypool celebration. That's that Notre Dame football IQ right there, baby. Go Irish.
Oh, whatever. Oh yeah, what bowl game did you make this year? Oh.
What bowl game did you win this year?
At least we got there.
What's your record in your last 11 BCS / New Year's Six bowls? I think it was 0-11. Yeah, 0-11. That's what.
Hey, at least Marcus Freeman Leo's harder.
Marcus Freeman apparently just Leo's harder, and that's what's going to take him to the top.
I don't want to hear it because Florida got beat in the Gasparilla Bowl, and our season was 6-7. Okay. How I feel is pain.
My favorite from that game was I was watching it, and right at the beginning, they flashed up an infographic, and it said Emory Jones, last game as a Florida Gator.
He was transferring before the game, and he still started. I hate my life.
Florida football's in a bad place.
Hey, we're not though. Billy Napier, famous quote, best quote. Get a huge poster and like put it in front of my house from the garage down. Scared money don't make money. We're gonna be back. Give him a couple years. He doesn't have the same talent that Mullen came in with, and then Mullen grew talent. He's kind of lower on the talent pool, but he'll build up. And honestly, I think he's a guy that's going to be more like coming from, Lafayette, not a mid-major mentality, but a guy that can go out. He doesn't need the 4 and 5 stars to win. He's already recruited guys to come play for him. Anyways, let's not talk about Florida. They pissed me off. 6-7, losing in the Gasparilla Bowl. On to college basketball, though.
I was going to say, football season's over for all 3 of our teams. We already talked about the playoff. Let's get what matters right now? College basketball.
Purdue. I always said Purdue was going to be a team once it got into the meat of Big Ten season. They would play back-to-back games. They'd have a third game like on a random Monday, like last night, or like a random Wednesday night. They'd play on the road at Rutgers or Penn State or something. They'd lose. I didn't think it'd be 2 games this early in the season, though. No. And I still think they're a top 5 team, hands down. So that's where I'm at with college basketball this year.
I I'll agree with you only in the sense that there's no, I mean, Baylor, besides Baylor, there's no clear-cut best team in the country. I mean, even at that, I don't think Baylor's as good as they were last year. So, you look at Purdue and you can still say, even after that, comfortably, at least for me, comfortably, I can say they're a top 10 team, even after that. And it's crazy. It's crazy to me because they don't lose at home. They don't lose at home. No matter who it is, they do not lose at Mackey. But I've watched it and it kind of carried over from what I saw in the Rutgers loss. The game after they played Rutgers, a lot of people kind of brushed it off, but they played a close one with NC State right after they lost to Rutgers. And then in this Wisconsin game, defense is just kind of lackadaisical. And that's never really been Purdue's MO. So I think they're going to figure it out. I mean, they've always been a solid defensive team. So I think they'll figure it out. They're not a juggernaut like I thought they were. I mentioned on the first podcast, I thought they were a juggernaut. They're not. I still think they have a great chance to win the Big Ten, but they're going to lose some games here and there. And it's just the way it is. It's like I've said before, Big Ten has a lot of good teams, not a lot of great teams. And that means there's going to be a lot of Big Ten beating up on each other.
Don't knock off that Rutgers loss, though. It was at Rutgers. Playing at the rack's always hard. Rutgers tonight, literally, I want to say 30 minutes ago, just beat Michigan at home, at the rack, of course, by 8 points. At one point, they were up by like 16. Michigan's not as good as we thought they were. I understand that. Yeah, I'll say it. I'll admit it. They're not as good as anyone thought they were. They're 7-6 on the season. They're not good, but they're still a good team. They're not living up to their potential, but they still have studs on their team and they can hoop. But Rutgers, those 2 wins, 8-5, says a lot, I think. And that, not to take away from Purdue, but Purdue also, they couldn't shut down Jordan Davis yesterday. Dude went absolutely nuts.
And that's another thing to your same point. Wisconsin's a very good basketball team. They're better than 23rd in the country.
Oh yeah,
Johnny Davis. He's a ball player. I mean, I watched it against IU, watched it against Purdue yesterday. No doubt in my mind, he's first team all Big Ten player. So Wisconsin's another team to look out for in Big Ten season. Like I said, I think Purdue's going to win, but it's pretty much an open field after Purdue. So I guess we'll see. We're only 3 games in. Purdue's still a good team. I've been saying, not to go on too long about it, I can ramble on about Purdue forever too. I think the ceiling with Matt Painter is an Elite Eight. I do. He's been there for 20 years now. I don't know how long he's been there, almost 20 years. I think the ceiling's the Elite Eight, but they're a good team. I think they have a chance to get there this year, but we'll see when it happens.
As a fan of college basketball, I pray they do not get a 15 seed, because we all know what happens when they get that 15 seed, or the 2 seed, excuse me. Yeah.
When they play a 15 seed.
Yeah. I pray that they are not a 2 seed. Give them a 3 seed, even if they're deserving of a 2 seed, or give them a 4.
They lost as a 4 seed last year.
The second they are awarded something like that, though, the 2 seed, there's going to be a 15 seed. And every year there's a 2-15 matchup, and everyone's Oral Roberts last year. And I can go on and on. Middle Tennessee State versus Michigan State way back when. Every year it happens. They're going to be that team. The storybook's written. It's already happened.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the 2015 tournament, they were a 2 seed and did lose to the 15. Yeah, they lost to Little Rock.
This is what I'm saying. It's happened. And they will be that team. It's just written. Their story's written. So stay away from it. Write a new story. Don't lose the rest of the year and be a 1 seed. But you just, I don't know. Can your Hoosiers do any better?
All right, we got to get off Purdue.
All right. Well, like you said, all right, can the Hoosiers do any better? The answer to that is no. No, they cannot. I was hopeful before we got into the Big Ten season. After watching the Penn State game Sunday, it's like watching an Archie Miller team with a different head coach. The offense is extremely stagnant. I sound like I kind of want to pull back for a second. I feel like I sound like every 50-plus-year-old IU fan right now because this is what they all say, but it's true. If you really watch the game, they don't move around on offense. In the entire last 3 minutes, they were waiting to get the ball to Trace Jackson Davis. They were waiting for someone to do something to get Trace the ball, but no one was. They were all waiting, and then they couldn't get Trace the ball because Penn State figured if you just double team and deny, they're not going to get the ball to Trace. No one else can shoot, and no one else is even going to try to make a play. So they figured it out, and Penn State ended up winning the game. Defense was all right, as it has been. Penn State was hitting everything they threw up.
They allowed 11 offensive rebounds.
They were contesting shots, and Penn State was hitting everything. Yes, there was one possession where there were 4 offensive rebounds. So if you take that one possession away, it was
okay. 7 to IU's 9. Sorry. There, I give IU the edge.
Spurgeon, go in on them.
Oh my gosh, 4 for 17, 24% from 3. You don't have anyone else on your team other than Trace, and I root for IU. I want them to succeed, man. That's the story of every Hoosier's life, whether you're for him or against him. It's the same thing with Butler, and Butler's just so bad right now. Speaking of which, they're getting beat at home by Seton Hall right now by 10. They suck. But, dude, IU, you can't shoot 4 for 17 from 3. Other than Trace, who's averaging 20 points a night, a double-double, you don't really have a second star. You don't have anyone other than that. You got a collective group of guys that can go out and get you 8 to 10 points, not flashy, nothing big. Get you points on the board, though. But you need a second star, and you need people to start doing stuff. So, other than that, I mean –
That's been the issue since Archie Miller took over at Indiana. There has not been a second option for whoever the best player is. His first year you had Juwan Morgan and Romeo Langford. Neither one were consistent enough to be a 1 or a 2, so they were really bad. Then you bring Trace Jackson Davis in. It looked like it could be Rob Fennessy for a little bit. He kind of fell off. It looks like it's been Race Thompson at times. He's not consistent scoring.
That's the problem right there.
Exactly.
Race Thompson?
The second person is not consistent enough. But I don't think you necessarily have to have a consistent number 2 guy if someone can step up every night. And that has happened for the most part every game this season. Syracuse game, Miller Kopp stepped up. I'm trying to think which game it was. The Wisconsin game that we ended up blowing, Parker Stewart stepped up. I mean, each game someone else has stepped up, but I mean, just this last Penn State game, no one did, and that's why we lost to a 5-5 Penn State team that had been 0-2 in the conference at the time. I still think Mike Woodson's going to figure out how to do it, and he's gonna figure. It's going to happen later, and it might be too late because we're already getting to the point where we're 1-2. We're 1-2 in Big Ten play.
And that's the thing with this Penn State loss kind of bugs me. Like, it's okay if this happens midway through the Big Ten season. I feel like guys get tired. The Big Ten, it's a gauntlet, man. You're going through the gulag night in and night out. It's going to be like the SEC basketball this year. No joke. SEC basketball is top-notch this year. By far. Auburn, Kentucky, LSU, Bama, Florida. Those 5 alone. Tennessee. Come on now, Freddie. You know it. There's like 6 good teams that are in there. Easily. Okay, yeah. Anyway, that's a team you lose to Penn State, like your 10th or 11th game into the Big Ten. At home, too. It's cool. You lose on the road at Penn State. I get it. But that's not a game.
It was on the road. It was at
Penn State. That's what I'm saying. That's a game you lose on the road. You lose that on the road 10 games into the Big Ten season. You don't lose it when you're 1-1 and you've played Wisconsin. At Wisconsin, you should have won. I'll give you that one, but you let it slip. And who was their other Big Ten win against?
Nebraska at home.
Exactly. I mean, Nebraska, that should have been a win. I hope 20-point game easily. Nebraska basketball is just, if not worse, they're probably worse than Nebraska
You
football. And that's hard to do.
You actually are supposed to. The correct term is Nebraska ball. You're supposed to shorten it and put it together.
My apologies to all you Cornhuskers out there. Please
Hey,
stick together.
I'll be the resident Big Ten basketball expert, and you got to call it the right things, and that's Nebraska ball.
Well,
But
they suck.
anyway, I think we still haven't won a true road game. The only ones we've played this year were at Syracuse. Got off to way too slow of a start, figured it out too late, and didn't close it out. Wisconsin, up by 20 halftime, blew it. And then the Penn State game, it was just that one never looked good. It really didn't. But they haven't won since last January at number 4 Iowa. So I think once they get the monkey off their back, like say they go and win at Northwestern. I mean, once they get it off their back, I think it'll kind of get them going. They got to get it off the back.
They'll catch stride.
Yeah, they will. They will.
It hurts too when Michael Durr's your backup behind Trace. He is not mobile. He's not good. I mean, he was decent for University. He was decent for USF. Tom Allen's boy right there. He was decent for them. But
I'll give you this. I don't know if you guys remember Deron Davis. It's been a couple years. He's Deron Davis, but worse, which is not good.
That's a guy you don't want on your team. Like you want him. He's a body. He'll go out there. He'll throw some
rebounds.
Get a couple rebounds. He had 2 rebounds against Penn State, Freddie. He did only play 5 minutes. But I mean,
that's what I'm saying. He gets rebounds when he's out there. He gets rebounds. That's awesome.
Anyways,
but it's going to be a process, and it'll be a process.
Shout out to Michael Shrewsbury.
One way to put it.
That's where I'll end it. Is that it will be a process.
No, but Finn, our alma mater, Micah Shrewsbury, head coach at Penn State, former Cathedral boy. Shout out to him on getting the dub over his home state Hoosiers.
Go Irish, baby.
Good job.
But yeah, I think we got to wrap it up here. It's kind of about that time. Now, kind of sum up what we talked about. I mean, Alabama's probably going to win it all. You got Colts. Carson Wentz needs to make those easy plays. And then you got Antonio Brown, confirmed diva, everyone knew. And then you got Mike Tomlin, GOAT. And then we have IU in a process.
And Purdue also in a process, but better. They're in a better process. They're both in a process.
Butler still Butler.
We're all in a process.
IUPUI still IUPUI. Evansville's Evansville. St. Joe's doesn't exist. And Notre Dame got 30 balls.
Okay, we don't need to get into that.
There we go.
Hey,
we're going off the rails.
Hey, UE, shortly, we get rid of Licklider. Okay. He's not good.
And then they're in another process.
Just don't try to bring Walter McCarty back. That's all I ask.
All right. That's it from us, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. You know how it goes. We'll see you next time.
And roll horse this week, baby. Adios.
Roll horse. Stop recording.